Vi bygger landet i gärning och ord, röjer dess stegar och plöjer dess jord. Vi bärgar skörden som åkrarna gav, timret ur skogen och fångsten ur hav. Vi är det tusenden som bygger landet, vi var det fram i nöd och strid, i trots och längtan, i svält och armod. Nu bygger vi den nya tid. Malmen ur berget och milornas skål stöpte vi järn av och smidde till stål. Fiskarens koja och torparens hem röjde vi plats för och timrade den. Vi är det tusenden som bygger landet, vi var det fram i nöd och strid, i trots och längtan, i svält och armod. Nu bygger vi den nya tid. Vi är fabrikens och plogarnas män, vi reste bygden och värnade den.
Vi är de kvinnor som bördorna bar, skapade lyckan och höll henne kvar.
Vi är det tusenden som bygger landet, vi var det fram i nöd och strid, i trots och längtan, i svält och armod. Nu bygger vi den nya tid. Hör hur det sjunger från rem och pistong, hör hur det växer till arbetets sång. Susar från axeln av gulande säd, stiger i klangen från släggor och späd. Vi är det tusenden som bygger landet, vi var det fram i död och strid, i trots och längtan, i svält och armod. Nu bygger vi den nya tid.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exciting new episode of Azure Scapegoat goes live for the first time in 10 years. With me today, I have Bleep Blomp Ben, who is someone you may have heard of. He has been on my streams before. I've been on his streams before. Do I have a command for you, Ben? I don't think so. Bleep Blomp. There you go. I put his links in the chat. Make sure to go follow Ben. He does news. He reads the news, kind of like we're gonna do today. Only today I want to focus on news from countries that you otherwise might not read that much about, or rather, news sources that you might not read much about. So there are quite a few things that I want to go over. I am still kind of working on all of it, kind of behind the scenes, gathering up all the links. But there was one article that I wanted to take a look at first. So what do you say, Ben? Should we jump into it, or do you want to introduce yourself, maybe?
Sure, yeah, I can introduce myself. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben. Everything that Azure said about me is true. I am, in fact, a Twitch streamer, and I do news and politics. So yeah, that's
Great. So, jumping straight into our... Oh, wait, that's the wrong window. Sorry about that. Jumping straight into our very professional... wait, what is... Oh, is this the one? No? God damn it. Sorry. For some reason it doesn't... There it is. Now, I don't know how well you can see this at all, so I might just switch to to a scene where you can actually just read the whole article. But I did want to show off my new scene.
Yeah.
Actually, oops. We just take a look at what this would look like in the scene. Window capture. Okay, yeah, we're just gonna do it like this. So, this was something that I read the other day, I believe, yeah, a few days ago. And I wanted to talk about it because it was pretty interesting seeing how the People's Daily was kind of spinning this as a good thing, right? So, China to gradually raise the retirement age by Li Jinping, People's Daily. People's Daily, not sure how directly tied they are to the Chinese government or the CPC, but they're very much, an opinion piece, right? Like they're openly pro-China, pro-CPC, and they never really question or criticize policies by the CPC. So this is an article about how China is going to raise the retirement age in China from 60 to 65. And I just thought it was really interesting to take a look at the People's Daily, seeing how they kind of justify this.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, we see a picture of a happy old man, 65 years old. He continues to teach Chinese calligraphy at a primary school in Kangijia village in Guobei Township, Nanyang, Southwest China's Sichuan province, September 7, 2020. So of course, we're introduced to an old person who I mean, would you really, do you really want the government to come to this guy's school in Sichuan province and tell him, you're not allowed to teach anymore, you're too old, right? Those evil government officials telling old people they're not allowed to work anymore.
Exactly.
So it's very important to start off right the bat, showing a very happy old person who loves working and who doesn't want to retire. China will take small steps to raise the statutory age for retirement, says the country's recently published outline for the 14th five-year plan for national economic and social development and long-range objectives through the year 2035. The country will raise the retirement age by a few months every year, ensure flexibility, implement tailored policies for different groups, consider all factors. This one is my favorite because it means absolutely nothing, and make overall plans according to the National Development Blueprint. Decision to raise the retirement age is a result of China's increasing average life expectancy. This is not necessarily true, but we'll get back to that. Accelerating trend of population aging, that is true. Growing average schooling years of working age people. Not really. And changes in labor force structures. Which doesn't mean... Well... yeah, sort of. Okay, we'll get back to this at the end of the article, I think. I want to talk a little bit about, is it ever legitimate to raise the retirement age? What are the reasons China is actually doing this? And so on. But we'll read through the article first. Average life expectancy of Chinese citizens rose to 77.3 years, from around 40 years when the People's Republic of China was just founded. That of urban residents, which directly concerns the retirement age, has exceeded 80 years. In contrast, statutory age for retirement of China's working age population has not changed since it was determined in 1951. Therefore, it is necessary to make appropriate adjustments to the country's retirement age in accordance with increasing average life expectancy, that the two match each other's reasonably. Reasonably, of course, being defined by CPC. At the end of 2019, the proportion of seniors aged 60 and above in China's total population reached 18.1%. Number of the country's senior citizens is expected to surpass 300 million in the next 5 years. That is true. Since China is witnessing a growing general population aging, true. Working age population is going to decline day by day, true. Number of retired people will increase, true. All true things. This will place obvious impact on social and economic development if the country decides to maintain the current retirement age. Something certainly has to be done. Raising the retirement age is not my primary solution. But again, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll let the people's daily, explain itself first. Average number of years of schooling among the working age population has generally grown. True. China's Ministry of Education, the proportion of new entrants with higher education backgrounds to the country's labor force exceeded 50%, and their average number of years of schooling reached 13.7, which people are starting working at an older age. Yeah, generally true. If the age of retirement remains the same, the reduction in average number of years of working world results waste of human resources and a low utilization of human capital. Yes. Another way to word it is, we can really boost the economy if we just squeeze some more labor out of old people. Really, wrench that sponge, If the country can implement its policies on raising the retirement age in a timely and moderate manner to ensure good development and utilization of human resources, its increasingly large senior population, again, really rinsing that sponge, right? Really trying to squeeze the last drop of labor out of the aging population. It will be able to improve labor force participation and optimize the allocation of capital and labor force, which means generate more profit. Now, people near retirement only have to delay retirement for 1 month, several months. Let's see here. Allow people to choose the time for retirement according to your own situation, forcing them to retire at the raised statutory retirement age. Flexibility in this context, I assume, means people may have to work even longer than 65. They're framing it in a way that sounds like a lot of people are going to retire before 65, which may be true.
Yeah.
Now, I believe... Oh, wait, this is not the same art. Well, is it? I wonder if this article has been edited. Possibly.
Yeah, why? Is it just kind of like... Oh,
No,
wait, is this article
because
3 pages?
it is 3 pages, yeah, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Now, there was a part of this article that I remember reading when I first looked at this, which included a bit about the privatization of pensions and retirement homes. But I do not see a reference to that anywhere anymore.
Oh.
Were you getting a call?
No, that was my alarm to wake up in the morning.
Oh, all right. I was
Yeah.
Let's see. I wonder if they wrote several articles about this, maybe. Because, that's interesting. I wonder if they edited this, or if...
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that happens like all the time. Like, with any like news website, they'll decide to like take out random details or something. Like, it's like a huge thing. There's actually literally like a whole Twitter feed that is literally just dedicated to edits in the New York Times. So when they live edit the New York Times, that Twitter like tracks the edit and then shows you what they changed. So,
let's see. Pension privatization in Greater China, pension coverage. That is annoying, because that was one of the big things that I wanted to go over, actually.
Yeah.
Well, if I remember correctly, what the article was saying was that the reforms are going to be made so that private actors in the economy are going to play a larger role in the pensions industry, basically everything to do with pensions, right? So healthcare for pensioners, pensioners' homes, and the pension welfare, right, in general. And that this was in order to lower costs for the government because, again, the China's population is aging, and so the costs for the government are growing. And also there was a lot in there about how, you know, the private market is just more efficient, and this is just gonna make everything more better, right? Like, so there was essentially like the last couple of paragraphs were about, you know, how the market is just gonna make it better, right? Like, we're gonna get all the benefits of the current, you know, pension system, but the government isn't gonna have to spend any money on it. Basically, is what.
Yeah, doing the kind of like classic like neo-lib privatization thing, where they're like, no, trust us, it's definitely going to be far more efficient. It's markets and efficiency.
That is really interesting. I also don't remember this having. I don't remember his retirement age. See, because I remember this. I remember the picture of the teacher, right? I remember this, and I remember most of this. This article, but I remember the ending. Like, these paragraphs were different. Unless it's like a completely different article, but it was definitely on the People's Daily, and it was on the front page a few days ago. But yeah, I cannot seem to find it anymore, which is a shame.
Yeah, I don't know.
You just have to take. I'm actually kind of that's what I was saying.
Like, I'm kind of shocked that they have one retirement age, to be entirely honest. Like,
yeah,
I feel like, wouldn't it make sense for there to be different retirement ages based on like whatever sector in the economy that you're working in? Like,
yeah, that is one argument. Yeah. So, where I think it is a valid conversation to have about raising the retirement age, right? So when neoliberals in Europe say that, oh, the age, you know, the average life expectancy has gone up, so we need to raise the retirement age. When they say that, it's just kind of a thinly veiled way to say that they want to, you know, get as much profit out of humans as possible, right? They want to exploit people for longer, and they want to force old people to work, right? Because just because life expectancy has gone up, just because people live into, you know, live until they're like 85, 87, right? Just because people live longer doesn't mean that they are in, you know, fit physical condition to keep working past 60.
Yeah.
And some people exactly. Are, sure. Like, some people are fit past their 60s. Some people are perfectly fine and content with working. But just because someone lives until they're 90 years old doesn't mean that they can work until they're 75, right? That's not really how average life expectancy works. Your body still degrades. You still get tired. You know, it gets tougher for you to work when you get up into that age. So raising the retirement age just because the average life expectancy is higher is not a good argument. Now, China.
Yeah. So.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So you're telling me that just because the average life expectancy is higher doesn't mean that I'm not gonna start getting tired more as I entered my 30s, and then like I thought that's what it meant. Like, if higher life expectancy means, you know, your midlife, you know, aging process that happens that slows you down doesn't happen until, you know, like way later on. You get those extra years, right? Like, you know, I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. It's my birthday this month.
Birthday month. It's my birthday month too, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday month.
That's not a thing, and I refuse to accept that that's a thing.
It's totally a thing. It's totally a thing.
So, China does have a slightly different argument, which they went to a little bit. They kind of use both arguments, right? Saying the life expectancy is going up, people are staying in school for longer, which I think are bad arguments for raising the retirement age. Now, China has one possibly good argument for why they're raising the retirement age, and I disagree with it, but it is more valid than the other ones, right? And that is the Chinese population is aging, right? There are, I wonder if actually we can Google China age pyramid, not age of consent. I'm not interested in that. 2010, 2050. I think this. Is this it? What's the year here? Male surplus, female surplus. What's the year? Demographics of China. This one might be the clearest one from it's from ResearchGate. Now, don't take this with a grain of salt. I've not looked into if this is actually an accurate population pyramid, but the general trend of China's population and the I think this one might be good. Population projection. Yeah, you can kind of see. Yeah. Okay, I think this one might be good. Again, don't actually take the numbers or anything like that into account. But the general problem is the Chinese population is aging, right? Which means that there are a lot of people in working age right now, but they are not having a lot of children. And so that means that at most, a lot of Chinese parents, right, are going to have one kid. Some might have two. Very few are going to have 3 or 4, right? And that means that at best, some parents are going to replace themselves, right? 2 parents make 2 children. But the population is not increasing. It's, if anything, it's going to decrease. Whether it started decreasing or whether it's about to decrease, I'm not up to date on, but it is stagnating, right? And
yeah,
that means that by like 2030, 2040, you're going to have a very large amount of people above the retirement age who are not going to be working, and you're going to have a fewer amount of people than people who are retired in the working age, right? Which is like between like 25 to 60 ish, right? So you're going to have a small working population supporting a growing retired population. And that is a genuine problem for the Chinese economy, right? It's pensions and spending related to supporting people in their old age are up there in almost every government around the world is up there as one of the biggest expenditures for any given government. It is expensive supporting old people because they're not contributing to the economy anymore. They're supposed to be riding on the contributions that they did during their lives. But as the working age population grows smaller, it becomes harder and harder to raise the money required to support the aging population. And to China, the solution to this is raise the retirement age as much as is possible without causing, immediate outrage from the population, and just encourage people to have more children, which is a little bit, too little, too late. Remember they had the one-child policy. I think was it 2014? I think that they changed the one-child policy to a two-child policy, and there were. I wonder if you can actually two-child policy poster. Yeah, you kind of you got some things like this. I can't find the one that I was thinking about specifically, but you got posters that essentially said like 3 is too many, 1's not enough, 2 is just right, that kind of thing. So encouraging people to have, 2 children.
Yeah.
And but yeah, again, as too little, too late. As the Chinese, as people are lifted out of poverty, as the life expectancy is going up, the people's general material conditions in China are going up because more and more people are entering what we would call the middle class, right? People are living more comfortable lives. People are, becoming college educated. They're getting pretty lofty jobs. People have a privilege in China today that they didn't have before, where they can choose not to have children, which generally is something that happens as living standards go up. Is people can just say that we don't need to have kids, and a lot of people choose to only have one kid because back in the day, having children was partially about having kids that would support you when you were old, right? It was like your own kind of pension. Is you have kids, and then when your kids are old, you've grown old. Well, like when your kids are working age, you've grown old, and so your kids are making money, and they can take care of you when you're old. If you only have one kid, that kid might not be able to support you. If you go back, even further, if you go back 100 years or 200 years, you might have to deal with things like, famine, depression, malnutrition. Your one child might not survive. And so if you have 3, 4, 5 children, that's a much safer guarantee that you're going to be taken care of when you're old. And that was a calculation that people had to make back in the day. But as living standards go up and people become more secure and you have, social safety nets and that kind of thing, people can make the decision that either they're not going to have kids, or they're going to have a dog instead, or they're just going to have 1 or maybe 2 kids just because they want kids and not because they expect them to be, providing for them, right? And that's, you can also make an argument, I'm not sure how true it is, but you can make an argument perhaps that parents are less likely nowadays to pressure their children into going into lucrative careers. Like, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, and they're more likely to be like, you can do whatever you want, like, it's fine, follow your dreams, follow your hopes, like, because they had children to have children, and they didn't have children in order to have children that would support them when they grew old, right? Now, it's kind of a joke, but in Japan, the solution to the aging population has been robots, right? Increased automation of the economy means that the working population, which is growing smaller. Sorry, I haven't really been looking at chat. Apparently, do I have any moderators in chat right now? If there are any moderators listening, take a look at what's going on over there. Okay. So in Japan, one of the things that they've been talking about and debating about overpopulation, or not overpopulation, but an aging population, is using robots and automation to take a load off of the labor force. But something that neither China nor Japan are really considering is an increase in immigration. So I'm of the opinion that immigration is basically bound to improve the economy and is bound to be a solution for aging populations. There are tons of people who want to move to China, to Japan, and as well as to first world countries in Europe, in America, but who are prohibited often by pretty racist immigration system where white people generally have a much easier time moving to first world countries than people from third world countries have, right? Sorry, just taking a drink. So my opinion on aging populations and the solution to that is literally just open up the borders to the people who want to move here. And I can see why China doesn't want to do that, which kind of goes into my whole thing that I've been talking about. I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned it on stream, but I've come up with a term, and I'm not sure how useful it is, but it's something I've been using as like a stand-in because I don't have anything else to call it. But I've called it nationalistic pragmatism, or pragmatic nationalism, either or, which is a way for me to perceive Chinese politics, both foreign and domestic, and what they're doing, and be able to understand it in a larger context. So, I don't want to get too into it, but the long and short of it is, China, the CPC, the government of China has one big priority, and that is keeping China together, defeating separatism wherever it rears its head, and whether it's doing that through suppression or increased autonomy and political rights and like just benefits, right? Is up to whatever it is that works, and that's a pragmatic part of pragmatic nationalism. But China wants to, at all costs, make sure that China is kept together, that China doesn't splinter apart. Now, you don't get separatism from Tibet, from Mongolia, from Xinjiang, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. And I imagine that the CPC has made the calculation, because I'm certain that they've talked about opening up immigration and just letting more people come in order to replace the aging population. And I imagine that they've made the calculation that opening up immigration is too risky politically, because it's to them, they believe it's going to decrease stability, and it risks setting off that first domino, which is going to lead to a bunch of separatist revolts throughout China, which is like the number one thing that China is trying to prevent, is that first domino falling, causing a bunch of unrest and potentially terrorism, which I think is what they're most afraid of. So instead of increased immigration and getting a workforce from abroad to replace the amount of people who are going into retirement age, they're raising the retirement age, and they're looking for alternative solutions. Worth mentioning, most separatist groups are extremely reactionary. Yes, of course. I'm not putting my support behind any like separatist groups in China, right? The CPC is terrified of separatist groups because they have this domino theory that as soon as one separatist groups in China gains traction and they start becoming mobilized, that's going to inspire a bunch of separate separatist groups throughout the country, and that's going to cause political turmoil that the CPC wants to avoid at all costs, which wouldn't be good for anyone, right? I'm not like on that point. I do agree that a civil war, which is the worst case scenario, right? And like separatist terrorism would be bad, right? Not trying to say that it will be a good thing. Isn't that basically what happened in Yugoslavia? Arguably that is what happened in Yugoslavia. That was also the big thing about the Communist Party of Yugoslavia, was keeping the country together and trying to make sure that it didn't splinter apart. If they did anything wrong, or if it was all just because of external intervention, if the Yugoslavia should have been more lenient, or if they should have been more aggressive, I'm not going to touch that argument, right? but it's more or less it's a similar situation where the central government trying very hard to keep everyone together, and splintering and separatism would be very bad for everyone involved, and it would probably cause a lot of people to die, which would be bad. Slightly reactionary, well, pretty reactionary take from the CPC is increased immigration would lead to more political turmoil, which would be kind of one of one of the first dominoes in this long line of dominoes, eventually leading down to China splintering and terrorism and death and the apocalypse and the end of the world, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think another factor also might be like popular opinion, right? And they might be like because like China itself is like a relatively diverse country, right, with its own set of like diverse like ethnic groups and cultural groups, and there has been some history of like internal racism within different groups within China. And so another thing that they might be that might play a factor in their like internal domino theory is basically fear of like the local population's reaction to immigration and things like that it might spark like like more racial division, right? And that people would get super racist against people who are immigrating there, and then it would lead to sort of like amplifying that like any type of like separatist movement that might possibly form, right? Like in their minds, like I think so it's I guess it's like an additional factor included in with that, because like there is some history of that, right? There is some history of like like internal division within China, and some like history of like racism. And is there like a big because my own impression is that there's a big issue with like inequality too, right? Where it's been a while since I've done like East Asian studies. It was literally like one semester in my undergrad. But aren't there a couple of groups like there's like pretty much like one dominant group that right now like economically has been in like a better position for like a very, very long time, right? Like even predating like Mao, like literally just historically throughout China, and then a ton of other groups that
I'm not sure. Are you referring to the Han Chinese?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. The Han historically have been the majority kind of ethnicity in China, and there is some tension. I'm not too plugged into the whole thing, but I know that historically, I'm not sure how it is right now, but historically there has been tension between the Han Chinese and other smaller ethnicities and cultural groups within China, like Cantonese speakers, for instance. Now, and I know there's a north-south divide in China, which partially is like a like a cultural thing, like like kind of like a friendly thing, like the north and south in the U.S., right? Like how like there's like a friendly aspect of it, right? Like, oh, their accents are funny, and oh, they make pancakes like this. Then there's also
like Minnesota and Wisconsin, right? Where like with Minnesota and Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin will vote for Republicans, and they'll do all these things that like Minnesotans will look down on, and they'll be like, "Oh, look at Wisconsin," right? But also, there's kind of like that friendly rivalry too, right? Where it's like, "Oh, Wisconsin's not as good as Minnesota," and there's like, I don't know if this is a great comparison, but basically like in some instances there's real political realities that stem from like Minnesota being a blue state specifically because look at us, we're better and we're more open-minded than those Wisconsin people. But then also like it's kind of like a friendly tension otherwise, so there are some political realities, but it's like there's not like a civil war between like Wisconsin and Minnesota. Like, I don't know. Does that make sense? Is that like, do you think that's like probably a similar comparison?
I don't know. It's the thing. I don't know. It's possible. Yeah, maybe. Now China. China is. What's that fucking copy pasta thing that Chinese communists on Twitter always post? Like, China is 5,000-year-old country with older than toilet paper. I don't know. I just yeah, China is a very old country. It's a very complicated country. Lots of different ethnicities and cultural groups and languages within China itself. I am under no impression that it's easy to talk about any of this in like a black and white kind of a way. But yeah, that might the Han Chinese thing might be what you were thinking of. There is a little bit of a tension.
Yeah. I mean, it's like literally like 1.3 billion people live there, and it is a country with thousands of years of history. Yeah. So, and literally any discussion about any one singular thing is gonna like necessarily have to be like a lot of gray and be a lot of like, well, it gets really complicated at a certain point. You know, it's not like America where it's like 200 years old and basically racism is just the history, right? Like in America, it's pretty easy, right? You can assume something in America originated for some sort of racist reason, and you're probably right. We're kind of a one-dimensional country here where I am, you know?
Yeah. Now, question for people in chat. Does anyone know if the Bolivian Movement for Socialism Party, MAS, has a website other than masipsb.bo? Because that is down. That's a dead link. And I can't seem to find any like official publication from that political party. And that's kind of something that I want to add to my bookmarks. Because I before the stream started, I was working on putting together a whole list of bookmarks for publications to go over for the stream, but I can't seem to find anything for MAS. Anyway, this was a related article to China's retirement age. Heated discussion in China to put postponing retirement age on agenda. This was December 2020, so this was before the article that we read. Let's see. I've been working very hard in my position for half of my life. Now I want to travel and enjoy life as soon as possible. China will gradually raise the minimum statutory retirement age. Actively responding to the aging population. Voices of concerns. Some users who opposed the proposal lamented they may die before retirement age after decades of grueling work. Lee has bad eyes and a sore back. After the age of 50, Lee said she was no longer responsible for her previous main job. Delaying retirement will not give the old more room for promotion. I have no passion for work, Lee added. Lee Bin, pseudonym, 53-year-old radiologist. He feels his work style and experience are out of step with the times. That is, I think The Onion made a parody video about like the world's oldest neurosurgeon is 93 years old or something like that.
Oh,
he's like
no.
super bad Parkinson's. But this is actually something that I've heard about the medical sector, the healthcare in general, is younger doctors make use of the internet and looking up symptoms a lot more than older doctors do. And older doctors tend to rely more on their own experience and their own, memories of what they know. And they tend to be, and this is just a stereotype for older doctors all over the world, right? Is they tend to be a little bit too sure of themselves, and they tend to be kind of like, I know what I'm doing. I know how this is done, right? You kids don't know anything. And young doctors and healthcare professionals and nurses tend to be more cautious and look up things that they're unsure about more often. And that is one aspect of raising the retirement age that I think is interesting, is how is that going to affect different professions, because I think it is true that in certain professions, old people over the age of 65 or over the age of 60 even might not do as good of a job.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, especially like honestly, like any highly knowledge-based field, I feel like is going to be at a like there's going to be that dichotomy, right? Because I mean, like think about computer programming, right? Computer programming right now is really dominated by young people. And the reason for that is very, very simple, right? Every 5 years or so, there's a new programming language that has fundamentally new techniques and new like underlying principles and new theories, like and the approach to solving problems is fundamentally different, and every iteration, generally speaking, is better. And so I mean, think about it. Like if you learn Visual Basic in the late 90s, right? That doesn't mean that you know how to apply like neural network machine learning algorithms in, Python or something like that. It's just completely different. And so, like you spend a lot of time learning something and you get really good at something, and then it just becomes not relevant anymore. And so there's like a huge problem, right? Especially with things like doctors, right? Where like up to date information is super, super important. And like we're all human, right? We're all human. There's no shame in knowing that like we kind of slow down when it comes to learning new things. I mean, like Noam Chomsky is a 100% galaxy brain, but Noam Chomsky's takes, like his takes about modern events, are not as galaxy brained as his takes about America in the 90s were. You know what I mean? Like so like that's the thing, right? He spent a lot of time like looking at the history of the United States during the Cold War, and all those things. Like yeah, he's like 100 years old, right? So he's not going to be completely up to date on everything, right? I don't think that Noam Chomsky is going to have like the world's greatest take on like I don't know. I can't think like I don't know, Steven Crowder. I like,
like trans issues. I'm not sure if he's ever talked about that.
Yeah, like I assume his instinct is probably cool on trans issues, right? He's probably like, "Oh, yeah, we should be accepting of trans people." But he probably doesn't really have like the complete understanding of like, I mean, if somebody walked up to Noam Chomsky and said, "Hey, Noam Chomsky, do you know what it means to be like non-binary or something like that?" I would like there's a chance that he doesn't know. Now, he was a linguist, right? And so that's like sort of like gender stereotype non-conforming people, right? Like non-heteronormative like culture is more understood among people who have like anthropology backgrounds, just because like you have to like actually learn about other people around the entire planet. And so maybe he's almost up to speed, because like a lot of what's happening now is people are just becoming more publicly aware of what like feminist anthropologists were talking about in the 60s. But like I don't know, I am thinking like automation, right? I don't think Noam Chomsky has a complete grasp of like how automation is going to fundamentally change, like the world, or like artificial intelligence, right? That's just not, it's just new stuff. I mean, it's the
maybe.
same thing.
But I think the main thing is now pension retirement age works a little bit differently in different countries. Retirement age doesn't mean the same thing everywhere. So retirement age doesn't, and I don't know how it is in China right now. So I will admit that blind spot. But retirement age doesn't necessarily mean you hit this age and then you're not allowed to work anymore. Retirement age can also just mean this is the age at which you can you start receiving pensions, right? Like the government starts giving you money out of the pension fund that you've been putting into, or your employer has been putting into, depending on the system, your entire working life. Now, whether there are like laws about if companies are allowed to hire people that are over the retirement age, that I imagine varies drastically from country to country. But I know several people who have retired and who have, you know, received their pension funds, and like they're good on money, you know, like they're surviving, they can pay all their bills, they have, you know, they have enough to survive on, or they have more than enough to survive on. But who still choose to work at least part-time, usually in the place where they worked before, because, you know, when you retire, it can get pretty boring, you know. You kind of just want to go back to doing what you're used to, at least for a little bit. And at that point, you're not really doing it for the money, you're doing it because you still feel like you can still do it, at least part-time, and you still just want something to you know, occupy your time with, right? So, I don't think like retirement age needs to be a conversation about at what point are people like no longer allowed to work, because that's not really the point. It's not about when you know, when shouldn't. I mean, I guess if you're 96 years old and you have Parkinson's, you probably shouldn't be allowed to be a neurosurgeon. But I feel like that's a very exceptional case, right? I don't think there's like an age at which someone is not allowed to be a librarian anymore, you know?
Yeah.
But that is not an argument for raising the retirement age. The retirement age is stay where it's at, giving people money out of their own pension funds that they have been paying into, right? It's, you know, more or less it's their money, right? And just giving them those checks so that they can live a comfortable life. You know, it's universal basic income for old people, except it's universal basic income that you have been paying into from, like, you've given a part of your check every month, like your wage every month, putting it into a pension fund in order for you to get it later. You know, like it's government mandated savings, essentially, with interest. So yeah, that's it. I think the retirement age should stay where it's at. 60, I think, is very reasonable. I'm not. I don't think 65 is monstrously high. I think it is a little bit too high, and I don't think raising it is the solution to China's aging population. It might help mitigate the economic impact that the aging population is going to have in China, but it's in no way going to solve the problem. And I'm not even. I don't think the CPC even expects it to solve the problem. But I'm not sure what else they're doing, because I feel like at one point or another they're going to get to the point where our working age population is too small, our retired population is too big. Like, either we're going to have to like drop these old people and say like, sorry, you're just not getting these pension checks anymore, like it's just too expensive, or they're going to be like, all right, we need to import workers from other countries. Like, we need to fill this labor pool in some way. And whether that's through immigrants or just like trying to optimize the entire fucking Chinese economy, remains to be seen, I suppose. China might go the way of Japan and try to fill the gap with automation, which maybe is working in Japan, but the aging population is still a problem. And I think economists are expecting it to become an even bigger problem going forward. So who knows?
Well, I mean, we're dealing with the same thing in the United States here. Like, they're already talking about... they're already talking about raising the retirement age to like 70 here in the United States, right? Yeah. Like, that's the new line along the Republicans. And like, 70 is pretty old, right? Like,
yeah. Quite a few people do die before they hit 70. Like, it's not abnormal for people to die in their late 60s, right? Yeah. Like, if someone dies at, when they're 68 or 69, yeah, it's, by modern standards, it's maybe a little bit young, but it's in no way unprecedented. It's not like a huge shock if someone dies from complications relating to old age around that age. Yeah, the
And
life
so-
expectancy in the US is around 60, 68, I think. Or, sorry, 78, 78. Someone put it
Yeah.
out in chat. Most
Like,
people would
and
only be
it's-
retired for 4 years. Yeah, I think that is... It is a bit macabre to think about, but the goal of these people who want to raise the retirement age, the goal is it's to take these 60-year-olds, 60 to 64-year-olds, and squeeze a bit more labor out of them to get more profits and primitive accumulation into the economy. And part of it is once people are retired, they're not retired for as long, right? Like they die sooner, right? Because the longer that someone is retired, the more money that's costing the government. Because part of pensions comes from money that you've paid into during your working age, and then part of it is money subsidized by the government. And again, if you look at the expenditures of take any country basically, pensions are up there, right? As one of the biggest expenditures. In some countries, it is the biggest expenditure. In the US, obviously, it's the military, but I think followed somewhat closely by pensions. I'm not sure if it's number 2 but it's up there, right? So genuinely, if what you care about is the budget, the deficit, balance the budget, right? Which is it's a dog whistle, but we can get into that later. Something that conservatives want to do is spend less on old people. And how do you do that? Well, you make them work longer, and then you kind of maybe slowly, discreetly, secretly wither away this, the support system, their healthcare, and the pensioners' homes, and just kind of casually try to kill them off as soon as possible, because they're no longer contributing.
And actually, because that's the thing, right? Like when you expand the retirement age, you kind of cut it in 2 directions, right? Because like when you force people to work longer, right? When you force people to work longer, you're not only shortening the time that they have to be retired, because like their life expectancy would stay the same and they're just working more. You're also probably going to decrease their life expectancy by exposing them to like work-related stress, which increases aging, right? It will age you rapidly to have to deal with that stress. And so you're literally squeezing it in both directions, where if you force older people to work, when if they're having a hard time, well, then you're going to shorten up the life expectancy a little bit. And so that's a big problem, where they're squeezing it on both ends.
Like that's...
And exactly.
But it's like this, only it's raised retirement age, or what would you say, like lower life expectancy and raised retirement age. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, squeezing it on both ends, right? With and like the ultimate goal of this, we're not just talking about China anymore. We're just talking about raising the retirement age in general. The goal of conservative economic policies like this is, blood for the blood god. It's just squeezing profit out of people as much as possible for the economy, and by the economy, and that means private actors in the market, and spending as little as possible on old people, because old people aren't contributing to the economy anymore, right? They're not giving their blood for the blood god, and so they have to give their skulls to the skull throne instead. Right? Like those are your 2 choices, right? You give blood to the blood god, which means you give up, you labor your entire life, and your boss takes the surplus of the profit that you generate, or you give your skulls to the skull throne. You fucking die so that the government doesn't have to spend money keeping you alive anymore. Those are your 2 options under capitalism, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, Yeah,
Can't
but
imagine I can
it's
still
something that
catch up with my younger colleagues 7 years later. I just want to go through this article because we kind of got sidetracked a little bit. Jiao Yun worked at a public agency in East China's Fujian province after graduating from college this summer. She was the only 20-something staffed at her department. All the others are the age of 40, she said, adding that she guesses her department won't hire new people until someone retires and leaves. If retirement age is delayed, they may occupy posts for years, limiting job opportunities for young people. I feel like that's maybe a... I'm not sure that's necessarily my immediate concern. But yeah, sure, that part of it. World's largest number of seniors, they are required to retire earlier than those in any other country. Again, required to retire kind of makes it sound like the evil government is forcing people who love their jobs to receive welfare checks that they don't want.
Yeah.
It's framing in a way that's a bit too favorable.
I mean, that's literally how the Republicans frame it today in America. They're like, we're forcing people to retire at 65 when they should be slaving away for the Dow Jones, like we don't, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so that's literally how the Republicans frame it, though, is like the forcing people to retire. So it's very much that same frame.
These poor, sweet old people, they just want to work. They love their jobs. They just want to work. This man is 95 years old, working at a nuclear power plant all his life, and he loves his work. He gets cancer twice a year, and he has to do treatment for that, but he loves it.
Are you gonna tell this 64-year-old coal miner that next year they won't be able to keep mining this coal?
Yeah. He loves mining the coal. He's not even doing it for the money. He just loves mining the coal. And you're gonna tell him to his face that, oh, you're not allowed to mine coal anymore. Here, take this government check and live off of that instead, and live for free and don't do anything. Like, that's so evil. Could you imagine? Can you imagine being forced to live off of money that the government gives you and be forced to not have to work anymore?
I know. Imagine being forced to spend the last years of your life like being able to hang out with your family. Oh my God. Being forced to hang out with your family and your loved ones, right? Oh my God.
That is evil. That is evil. You can't just force people to spend time with their families. You can't do that. Most Chinese women retire too early. Wait, who is this? Who's talking? China's large number of senior current retirement age standard was made in 1950s when the average life expectancy was much shorter. Now our life expectancy is approaching 80 years old. The length of time we can work is much longer than in the past. That is not... The first part of this is true. The life expectancy is higher. This part does not naturally follow, right? The length of time we can work is longer. Yeah, sure, there are people who can work in their 70s. That doesn't mean that they should. Or that it's as easy for someone to work when they're 70 years old as when someone is 30 years old, right? Like, you can't compare... Go ahead.
No, I want to make a take about why, because like this is something that kind of rich people all around the world think, right? Mm-hmm. They think that if life expectancy goes up, that it follows that like people will be like able to work longer. But like, I think that's because rich people just don't age like poor people do, right? And so when rich people are talking about the poor's TM, they think in the world of like, well, I'm rich and I've got like personal trainers and I have this diet that's crafted for me. And like, I look like I'm 50 years old, even though I'm like 70, right? So then I'm in good shape. So these poors, they must have the similar experience, right? They must have the same experience. Yeah. But not realizing that just being like poor, like working class, just ages you way faster. And so I think part of this might literally just be like structural ignorance among people who maybe are a little bougie,
Yeah. Someone in the comments, Jamie ACAB, surplus isn't just for making rich people richer, they're using it to expand the size of the economy so they can produce enough to meet the people's needs. I think you're being a little bit too favorable when people talk about, oh, this is good for the economy. It's pretty rare that it's like, oh, we're gonna make sure that the economic surplus of this policy is gonna go directly back to helping the people, and now China does do good things, right? I don't think that China is an evil country. I think China is a pragmatic country. I think that they spend money where it benefits China in the long term. I think China has figured out that providing people with certain social safety nets and certain social benefits and building housing and make sure that people aren't unemployed or don't have access to education, right? Like, I think China has figured out that it is pragmatic. It is in the best interest of not only, the people, but also in the interest of the nation as a whole, that people aren't homeless and that they have access to education and that they can contribute to the economy. Now, if China is faced with a decision where they can throw money in a hole, right, which is how they view it, right, where they can spend a whole bunch of money and not get anything in return, right? They don't get increased political stability. They don't get increased public approval, at least by a large amount. The only thing that happens is they help people not die as soon, right? But the people who they're helping aren't going to be working, and if they choose not to do it, the public outrage is not going to be significant, right? If they're faced in that kind of situation, they're not going to do it because they're not guided by principles or ideology or proletarian internationalism or class struggles. They're guided by whatever is going to help the Chinese economy be developed, whatever is going to help, in a foreign policy sense, China's position as a challenger to U.S. global hegemony. And that is why you see things like China supporting with arms, weapons, and training the communist guerrillas in Nepal fighting against the Nepali monarchy, and then on the other hand, providing arms, training, and funding to the army of the Philippines, which is fighting against communist guerrilla groups. Because one of these communist guerrilla groups is going to be friendly to China, and one of these communist guerrilla groups might be hostile to China. And the Nepali monarchy is allied with India, and so it is in China's interest to support the communists there. But the Philippines is allied with China, and so it's in China's interest to ensure political stability in the Philippines and crush the communist revolt in the Philippines that might upset the political stability in the region and in the Philippines in general, and it might upset the economic relations between China and the Philippines, right? So China is doing whatever benefits China, and their regard for ideology or proletarian internationalism or class solidarity or anything like that has kind of gone out the window. Now, that's not to say that there aren't socialists in the CPC. They're there, and there are also neoliberals and capitalists in the CPC. But both of those, the ideological socialist and the ideological capitalist, have taken a back seat to the non-ideological pragmatic nationalists who do whatever works and for the benefit of a class collaborationist nationalist ideology, making China strong and united and together and a contender for global hegemony, kind of regardless of how they reach that goal.
Yeah, definitely. I think
just want the other side to be heard.
I think,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think your analysis on China is really spot on because most of my knowledge about China, it comes with its like relations with other countries, right? Mm-hmm. And it very much is. It very much like China when they're reaching out to do international relations is very much. I don't really care what you're doing. We just want to make sure that we have positive relations, right, with your government, so that we can do trade and benefit economically. Yeah.
I want to make it clear, I'm not like anti-China. I'm not saying China is evil, that everything China does is bad. In fact, many of the things that China has done, both domestically and foreign policy-wise, have had positive results, like the canceling of debts of several countries in the global south and the third world. Now, do I believe that China made the decision to do that because they, out of just, pure like proletarian class solidarity and, proletarian internationalist ideology? No, I don't think that's why they did that. I think that they see the benefit in having long-term allies instead of colonial puppets in Africa, right? I think that they see the benefit of not getting on the people's bad side in Africa, becoming friendly with the governments, several governments, especially in East Africa, helping them expand their infrastructure network, and not being too exploitative, right? And have more amicable relations. That is also gonna make other countries in the same economic positions as East Africa, like Tanzania, other countries in Africa and the global south are gonna look at that, and they're gonna think, hey, what if we do deals with China instead of America?
Yeah.
I think, like, more or less, it is a free market, right? Where African countries with a bunch of natural resources that everyone wants, they're the consumer, right? And China and the US are like competing companies, right? Like Walmart and Target or whatever.
Yeah, I was just about to make that comparison, actually. I was just going to say, like China is like the Target to America's Walmart, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, when they go to the global south, right, China's like, hey, we're, like, if you end up working with the Walmart, right, that is the Americans, you're going to be on food stamps and nobody's going to be able to, like, you're just going to be struggling. You're going to get subpar products. You're going to get all these things, right? But if you work with us, we're going to be a little bit nicer to you. We're still going to make money, but, you're going to have a little bit higher wages. You're maybe going to have a little bit of infrastructure, maybe, and if you work with the Americans, they're just going to they're going to squeeze you for literally everything that you're worth. Yeah. And we're only going to squeeze you a little bit, and we'll maybe help you. If you ask for help developing your economy, maybe we'll send some people to help, like, chart out trains for you,
And that is and it's a very logical thing to do. And I think even if the CPC was not in charge in China, if the, I don't know, the Kuomintang or something was in charge of China, it is a decision that I think it's very hard to make the argument that China shouldn't have done these things, that is not good for the Chinese economy, right? Because many countries in the global south and in the third world have trade relations with their own former European colonizers. Like a lot of formerly French African countries still have very strong economic ties to France, and several countries have very strong economic ties to the UK or to the US, and more or less, a lot of these countries are forced into agreements regarding tariffs. I forget the number, but I know that the tariffs that third world countries have to pay generally are at least twice what first world countries have to pay when trading with each other. But so in general, third world countries are given very shitty deals because the first world relies on resources extracted in Africa, and they want to get those resources as cheaply as possible. And the Chinese economy, as it's industrializing and the technological sector is increasing in size, and the traditional economic sectors of the Chinese economy are going away, China is more and more also starting to rely on those same resources. Now, a country like the Democratic Republic of Congo might be trading with the United States because they don't really have that much of an alternative. And they might be forced, more or less, to take a very shitty deal giving the United States a lot of rubber, for example, or not as much as the DRC might want. And so it makes sense in that political situation for China, or really any other country like Russia. Russia could do the same thing, coming in and saying, hey, we're going to give you a better deal on that rubber. Because then that relationship between the DRC and the US is not going to be exclusive anymore. And it's going to get a bunch of other African countries and countries in South America, for instance, more likely to deal with China, seeing how China is giving more favorable deals. Now, these are still deals that rely fundamentally on these economic relations being profitable for the Chinese economy. China is never going to get to the point where they are paying third world countries so much that it's not going to be profitable for the Chinese economy to even have these resources anymore, right? China would never cross that line, but they're willing to get closer to it than America is in order to kind of what's that word? Poach some economic trade partners from the US. Okay, sorry, I got sidetracked again. I want to try to get to the to the end of this article. Most Chinese women retire too early. Look at the grannies dancing in the parks. Many of them are only in their 50s. In general, there's a surplus in the pension fund, but in the face of the aging problem, there is imbalance between pension income and expenditure. Raising the retirement age will extend the contribution period of pension insurance and shorten the payout period. Many jobs held by older employees need years of experiences, which newbies can't handle, or low-paid service jobs that young people are reluctant to do. So the low-paid service job that young people are reluctant to do sounds to me like we're gonna put these old people to work doing what no one else wants to do, paying them fuck all to do it.
So that's the neurosurgeon that couldn't retire but can't do their job anymore. Sorry, you got to go work at a gas station now.
Or just sorry, cleaning up the sewers or something.
Oh my god!
Sometimes young engineers who I worked with would call me for advice when they met design problems, said Lynn, who is now 93. Yeah, sure, old people have experience. My strength is extremely limited at my age, but I think it's so nice to be able to do something and continue to contribute to society. Yeah. I mean, yes, of course. Humans naturally want to make themselves feel useful, and they want to contribute. But just because some old people feel a natural inclination to want to contribute to society and their community and help people doesn't mean that it's a green light to start exploiting old people, raising the retirement age and putting them to work doing shit that they don't want to do. Flexibility. Most Chinese women retire earlier than men. Some experts have suggested women should retire at the same age as men to ensure gender equality, which caused heated debate among Chinese netizens recently.
Yeah, I mean, that one is actually really interesting because, to my knowledge, in most countries, right? So I definitely know in most countries, I think it's like an overwhelming majority. Women actually have a higher life expectancy than men for the most part, right? So maybe it makes sense for them to have gender parity there. But like, I mean, if people want to, I'm always in favor of people retiring earlier though, right? And so that's like, I don't know. On one hand, I think it's ridiculous that there's a difference. On the other hand, I think that if people want to retire, they should be able to retire. And so if women are choosing to retire earlier, then that's fine. And we should be happy about that. Congratulations. I hope they enjoy their lives. I hope they have a fun time. So like, I don't know, like it's kind of a mixed take, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I literally don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think just having an equal retirement age at 60 is I think that's just the best way to do it. I think if people want to keep working after that, they should be allowed to, but at no point should the government be like, well, you're working, so we're not going to give you your pensions, right? I think people should be given their pensions. The pensions should be generous enough to live on. And if people want to choose to do some work after that point, they should be allowed to. There shouldn't be a law stopping them from, if they want to if they want to contribute in some way. But at no point should it be a financial requirement for people over the retirement age to have to work. And if some people want to retire earlier, I'm sure there are cases where that could be worked out. I'm not super. I mean, yeah, I don't really know at how or how you would do the details of that, but I don't think it should be impossible for people to receive their pension funds early.
Yeah. Oh, somebody in my chat pointed out that like women might have a higher life expectancy because they're literally just more likely to go to the doctor when they need to, whereas like men will be like, oh, I don't need to see no doctors. Who needs doctors? Am I right?
All right. We got a news story that I want to cover. Moving on from this retirement age thing. Tomorrow there is the second round of the presidential elections in Ecuador. Ecuador is interesting. Ecuador elected a man named Lenin Moreno, who was what was the name of his political party? The Pais Alliance. Patria. Something. Wait, hang on. Proud and Sovereign Homeland. Yeah, that was it. Which was a socialist party. It was part of kind of the pink wave in Latin America. You know, socialism of the 21st century, democratic socialism, all that, right? A la Venezuela, Chavismo, Evo Morales, that kind of thing. But Lenin Moreno, after he was put into office and elected on kind of this promise of not doing austerity and doing increased like welfare spending, he became a lot more fiscally conservative than he was supposed to have been. He was kind of he was the here we go. He was kind of the successor of Rafael Correa, who was a popular president in Ecuador. Lenin Moreno was elected after him, but was let's see. Yeah, here. Nominated as the candidate for Korea's Pais Alliance, Democratic Socialist. After his election, Moreno drastically shifted his political stance, distancing himself from Korea's leftist legacy, making neoliberal changes to both domestic and foreign policy. So now there has been the first round of elections has already happened. Andres Arauz is part of the Union for Hope, so he is the left-wing socialist alternative in this election. He is these are the polls, or this was that was the first round. Let's see here. The results for the first round: he received 32.72% of the vote, 3 million votes. The runner-up was the conservative Guillermo Lasso. I think conservative or center right wing, so liberal conservative. Received 1.8 million, 20% of the vote, roughly. And the second round of voting, so between these two, I think it's between only those two. I think it's only going to be those two candidates. Is happening tomorrow. Yeah, just tomorrow in general. Not I don't know when the polling locations open. If you live in Ecuador and you're of voting age, look that up. Look up your voting location, because this is gonna determine not just the future of Ecuador, but also the future of the socialist and anti-imperialist movement in all of Latin America. So no pressure. But vote for this guy. Let's see the Telesur article about this. Candidates have sharply distinct visions for moving Ecuador out of the pandemic and an ongoing economic slump. No doubt that the outcome will have profound impact on the nation's future and that of the continent. This coming Sunday, Ecuador will hold a historic election that will shape the Andean nation's future and Latin America's, just zooming in a little bit, Latin America's economic recovery and integration process. Two presidential candidates with quite radically different visions are in front of voters in this Sunday's elections in Ecuador, as the country is being pulled into one of two possible choices. Andres Arauz, a left-wing economist with a program to increase the social safety net, prevent corruption and capital flight, and Guillermo Lasso, a right-wing banker, literally a right-wing banker, okay. He would steer Ecuador towards an unregulated free market economy and continue to siphon the country's resources into offshore tax havens. Yeah, pretty much. After years of neoliberal policies inflicted on the nation under President Lenin Moreno's mandate, Ecuador's social, political, and economic situation has seen a drastic deterioration. Instead of continuing the legacy of progressive pro-people, pro-Latin American integration policies carried out under the Citizens' Revolution of the former President Rafael Correa, Moreno aligned himself with the continent's most retrograde forces and implemented a series of neoliberal measures, especially following the $4.2 billion agreement reached with the IMF. Andres Arauz of the Progressive Union for Hope Alliance won the electoral first round and received 32.72%, while Lasso received 19.74%. 35-year-old economist is currently pursuing a doctorate in financial economics at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He is supported by former President Rafael Correa and runs in the elections for a coalition of the left-wing Democratic Center and Social Commitment Force parties.
So I'm a little nervous, to be honest. Oh, I guess there's more to the article, but like it sounds like the Lenin who was there before, he kind of did like the Obama thing where he ran on promising like, oh, hope and change. Believe me, I'm gonna do all this lefty stuff. It's gonna be really, really cool. Trust me. And then got into office and was like, joke's on you. I'm actually gonna do all of the Bill Clinton things instead.
Yeah.
And that gets me a little bit nervous, though, about this election, because at least in America, the response to Obama was like, oh, well, anybody who promises any lefty stuff is actually lying, and you should be doomer about it. And I'm kind of nervous about that happening. But it seems like from those numbers that the lefty person, is actually...
He is leading by quite a bit, yeah.
Okay,
and as far as I can tell, MUPP is the third runner-up, which is also a socialist party. Socialism, Indigenismo, Environmental, Anti-Imperialism. So that's a left-wing political party. So I imagine in the second round, everyone who voted for Perez of MUPP are going to go over to Arauz, and it looks like he's probably going to win by an even wider margin if that is the case.
That is good then. That is good to hear.
And I imagine
Ecuador,
quite a few of these are also socialist-leaning political parties, Democratic left. Yeah. So
because Ecuador is like a super important country because it's really been the center of a lot of international court cases over their labor regulations and environmental protections, where they've been sued by like large multinational corporations because they were just trying to like, stop oil pipelines from like demolishing, their wilderness,
I've had my finger on the pulse of Ecuadorian news a little bit. I'm gonna do my best to be more up to date going forward. On what's gonna happen not only tomorrow but also what's happening in your Ecuadorian politics. But my impression of what happened in Ecuador as Lenin Moreno started announcing his more neoliberal policies was I know that there were protests. I'm not sure how bad they were. But I know there were protests, and generally people were pretty angry with Moreno and with the País Party in general, which I think I think they're running a candidate in Peña. They're receiving looks like 2% of the vote. Incumbent political party. This person doesn't even seem to have a Wikipedia article about them. No.
Oh, wow.
Ximena Peña, yeah. 1.54% of the vote.
Did Lenin just sink the entire political party then? Like
it looks like it, yeah.
Oh my god, you love to see it. You love to see it. Like, I don't know. Like, I obviously don't know how good the party is overall, right? And if this Lenin guy is like an outlier, but I don't know.
Well, the party was a left-wing political party, and Lenin Moreno made himself out to be a left-wing person as well. But then I think as Moreno became more right-wing, so too did the party, and I think that is why I think a lot of the people who are running members of Union for Hope. And these other left-wing political parties, I think a lot of them are probably people who have left the PiS Alliance. So I imagine all the good socialists from PiS are now in other political parties. Hopefully, they'll help shaping Ecuador's future to be more progressive. But yeah, no, I don't think there was a lot of doomerism necessarily. I think a lot of people just kind of voted socialist more aggressively, which is kind of what you saw in Bolivia as well. For those who don't know, there was a coup d'état in Bolivia. The sponsored by this coup d'état is brought to you by Elon Musk. Various economic and United States related governmental agencies to overthrow Evo Morales, who was an anti-imperialist socialist and who wanted to nationalize certain aspects of the Bolivian economy, including the resource extraction sector, I should say. And in the United States, there was a general panic that, holy shit, if he does this, we're going to have to pay more money for lithium, and we're not going to be able to get lithium for exploitative super low costs, but we're actually gonna have to pay a fair amount for this vital resource, lithium also being a very important resource for electric cars, which is why Elon Musk is involved in the whole thing.
And so like to put this into context, chat, okay, for all the Americans out there, it's called the United States would literally rather stage a coup in a different country than have trains. Like, they're like, no, by all means, we cannot have trains. We'll do electric cars instead. That's it. No trains. And to that end, they literally, like, and I know that might sound over the top and ridiculous, but that's just literally what it is. Like, we just, no, people have to drive cars because cars and suburbia. So
the United States put I think she was just some random senator, like not even like a high profile politician. She wasn't the leader of the opposition or anything. She was just some random person who was put in charge, backed by the military. And Evo Morales was exiled to Mexico. I forget, there was something about his dog. I don't know. I might never mind. Right. So what happened, and the reason why I brought this up was that people didn't become doomer. People became angry. A lot of, especially indigenous people, because Evo Morales was very popular among indigenous people and indigenous activists. And he was, before he became president, he was kind of indigenous, native rights activist. there were a lot of protests and riots, and new elections had to be organized, and people voted even harder for the political party of Evo Morales, and they elected a former member of Evo Morales' government, Luis Arce, Arce, I think, to the position of president, and Evo Morales could return to Bolivia and is still the leader of the movement for Socialism party to this day. So I imagine, much like in Bolivia, Moreno didn't turn people doomer. Instead, they just made people vote socialist even harder, which is good. I am glad that happened. During its campaign, the leftist candidate has emphasized the importance of promoting an economic model focused on job creation to ease the situation of millions of citizens who are worried, anguished, and hurt by President Lenin Moreno's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Arauz is committed to stop Ecuador from becoming an international money laundering center and strengthening dollarization. He also promised to consolidate the national financial system and end corruption in banks and capital flight. Regarding Ecuador's foreign relations, he is clearly heading towards Latin American integration. The UNES Alliance, which I think is the Union for Hope in English, he presides, has been under a tremendously grotesque smear campaign by Lasso supporters, using scare tactics to instill fear among voters, warning about his socialist tendencies, about, quote, Ecuador turning into another Venezuela, and using paid Venezuelan immigrants to scare potential voters away from his program. That's funny.
Oh my God.
Same tactics as in America. Meanwhile, the Creating Opportunities candidate, Guillermo Lasso, a banker who is into his third election bid, has finished second in the 2013 and 2017 election, has devoted most of his campaign to attacking the Union for Hope candidate and promoting a neoliberal economic program. The right-wing candidate presented himself as a self-made man who learned from a young age to work. Lasso vowed to be concerned about Ecuadorian families and the growing levels of unemployment on young youth and women. He has, throughout his campaign, tried to separate himself from the Moreno administration, which he has supported for the past 4 years. Oh.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
Oh my God.
So the party that went from ruling with a very large majority, and then under Moreno, the support of it dropped down to 2%. He was in support of that party and that president, and now he's like, wait, guys, no, totally, it wasn't. I didn't mean it like that. I totally don't support them. He also proposes keeping the US dollar as free circulation currency in Ecuador and promoting local and foreign investment to reactivate public works in the private sector. The millionaire affirmed he would eliminate a tax hurting small producers, while ignoring that his own party proposed it in the National Assembly. Kind of like how
oh my God.
Obamacare was like originally a Republican policy until Obama took it, and then all of a sudden the Republicans were like, Obamacare is the worst. We hate Obamacare.
Yeah.
The worst policy ever invented. Who thought of that anyway? Oh, it was us? Oh, never mind. It's still terrible though. We hate Obamacare. Yeah, wasn't it? It wasn't Mitt Romney, but Mitt Romney like ran on something like it, didn't he? Or something?
Yeah, no, Mitt Romney was the first governor to implement something like it. I think it was I don't remember what state. Was it in Massachusetts, I think? He was like governor of Massachusetts or something, and then he literally did the Affordable Care Act, but at the state level.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was good when he did it.
Yeah, yeah. And he literally campaigned on it. That was his thing. Like, it's just so neolibs hate their own policies, right? They love it when they do it, but hate it when any other neolib does any neolib policies, right? So it's the Spider-Man meme. It's literally the Spider-Man meme.
As if to prove a point right before the vote day arrives, Lasso has recently been involved in a legal process concerning tax evasion and offshore properties. That's not really a huge surprise. Lawmakers from the Manabi province recently filed a complaint against him for alleged tax fraud before the provincial prosecutor's office. Around the picture, a few weeks ago, international and local outlets have also revealed that the CREO candidate is linked to hiding assets in tax havens. Sunday, whichever candidate wins will be tasked with getting Ecuadorians back to work and the economy back on track. Two significant challenges. The new president will also inherit a deeply divided country and a precarious health situation. Don't know much about how Ecuador has handled coronavirus. We got some more articles here, actually. Indigenous people back Andrés Araújo's candidacy. Lasso linked to tens of millions in Florida properties. I assume that's more about the tax fraud allegations. 7% ahead in the runoff campaign. Let's take a look at this one, though. Indigenous people back Andrés Araújo's candidacy. UNES presidential candidate Andrés Araújo and CONAIE President Jaime Vargas, Ecuador, 2021. Union for Hope candidate is contesting the presidential election runoff to take place on April 11th. Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador President Jaime Vargas announced his support for Union for Hope candidate Andrés Araújo ahead of the presidential election runoff on April 11th. That is tomorrow, Sunday. Announcement was made after the conclusion of Araújo's electoral campaign in Sucumbíos province on Saturday. Sorry to everyone who lives there. We are building national unity by putting Ecuador first. We are summoned by the plurinational state, truth, justice, and reparation. Araújo tweeted in gratitude. Vargas' statement are made despite a decision approved last month by CONAIE to promote the null vote in the runoff elections after the Pachakutik presidential candidate Yaku Perez failed to stay in the race. He was the third runner up, I believe. Yaku Perez? Yeah. Yaku Perez. He was the indigenous socialist candidate for Pachakutik, the Pachakutik Plurinational Unity Movement, which does seem, from the little I've read about them, does seem pretty based. And it's a little bit sad that they didn't get the majority of the vote, but hopefully maybe the Union for Hope party can do like a coalition government with them or something. Several pollsters such as Clima Social, Perfiles de Opinión, Ipsos, and Omar Malik placed Araújo first in people's voting intentions. Only the pollsters Sedatos favored the other elections contender, Social Christian Party candidate Guillermo Lasso with 38.2% of the votes. Thursday, the National Electoral Council of Ecuador conducted a mock election in which 1,218 voting boards were activated. Okay. Oh, okay, like a... so not like a poll thing, but just like a making sure it's gonna work, I guess. Let's see what this video is. Yeah, I mean, it really was the worst possible timing for neoliberal policy and austerity is during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
His name is Lenin. His name is Lenin. Lenin Moreno. I believe in I think across Latin America generally, but in Ecuador specifically. Oh Jesus, that was a weird ad. Hang on, give me a moment. There was a bit of a trend to name your kid Lenin around the time when Lenin Moreno was born. The name is a little bit ironic now, considering he's a neoliberal. But yeah, that was it. Okay. Just ignore that. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. No one look at that. All right, I'm gonna go take a quick break. Ben, do you think you could take over for a minute?
Sure. I can take over.
I'll be back in just a few minutes.
I'll try to keep up with both of the chats. All right. Oh my god, Aiden, no. That's funny. Oh snap, Marie Hall DK, thank you for the 100 bits. I appreciate it. Oh my goodness. Glad your channel is here, otherwise I'd have nowhere to lurk on my birthday. Yeah, well, happy birthday again, Maria Hall DK. I hope you have a good birthday. What's up, Thanister? How you doing today? I hope you're having a good day. Yeah, so in my chat, we were talking a little about trains, right? The lack of trains in this country keeps it in the dark ages. 100%, right? The United States is like our lack of trains is unbelievable. It's literally unbelievable. And it's probably one of the most backwards things, right? And you could say, Ben, how is that one of the most backwards things? But you see, the lack of trains in America is done on purpose to basically keep neighborhoods largely segregated by basically refusing to give working class people the mobility that they need to move from one area to another if they want. And so, like, historically in America, neighborhoods were like gentrified and designed to like basically basically like force Black Americans into like underfunded neighborhoods, and then eliminate all public transit that would potentially allow them to go anywhere that would allow them to actually get like, jobs, right? Without having to get a car and like drive like 40 minutes. And so it's like a whole thing. It's like a whole entire thing. Yo, what's up, Gail? How you doing today? Happy birthday all around. Yeah, I mean, it is my birthday month, okay, but it's actually Maria Hall DK's actual real life birthday. And so birthday day takes priority over birthday month. But I mean, my birthday is gonna be in 17 days, okay? 17 days is when my birthday is, which actually just reminded me that I have a dentist appointment. Oh my god, I have a dentist appointment coming up. Am I near my goal for my dentist appointment? Oh, I'm not. I'm not near my goal for my dentist appointment for paying for it. Shoot. If you want to donate to help me pay for my dentist appointment, I greatly appreciate it. Did you read the postmortem from the Jane McAlevey on the Bessemer defeat? I didn't. I read a little bit about it, Hypocritical Luddite. Like, I read an article about it, but I didn't actually read the whole thing itself. It's my birthday year. Do I get priority? No. Birthday day takes #1 priority. Then after that, birthday month. Then after that, birthday year. So happy birthday year, Aiden. But it's my birthday year. Oh my god, Extropian. Oh, what a coincidence. What a coincidence. There's only a small number of people that don't have a birthday year every year, and that's people who are born on Leap Day, right? What's Ben's channel's name on YouTube? It's Bleep Blomp Ben, right? Bleep Blomp Ben. There's no space in Twitch because Twitch, I don't think, likes spaces, but there are spaces on YouTube, right? So Bleep Blomp Ben on YouTube with spaces. A merry unbirthday to you. Yes, a merry unbirthday to you as well, Blatt. I wish people listed why yes or no in their votes. Yeah, you is dead, right? It costs $900 to go to a dentist in America. Yes, it does, dear Frederick. It costs a lot of money to go see the dentist. And so if you want to help me pay for that dentist appointment, I would greatly appreciate it, because I like all my teeth being in my head, right? I don't want to not have my teeth. You know, so dentist is good, right? You know. Are you back? Welcome back. We
Yeah,
were talking
hello.
about trains and birthday months and dentists.
All right. Do you want to talk Cuba news? I've got some Cuba news.
Ooh, I'm always down for some Cuba news.
Yeah, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 articles. No, 4 articles. Sorry, 4 articles ready to go. Cuba health minister urges more prevention to curb COVID-19. Cuba is currently facing a complex epidemiological situation. Still, the preparation before the COVID-19 pandemic made it possible to avoid the collapse of the health system in the face of the third outbreak, health minister announced. Dr. Portal Miranda says the country has the capability to deal with even higher numbers, but that infection rates need to be reduced as well as the numbers reaching IC units. Cuba's Minister of Public Health, Dr. Jose Angel Portal Miranda, urged the population to comply with protective measures to stop the spread of COVID-19 at a time when the Caribbean country has accumulated 83,515 confirmed cases and 443 deaths due to complications of the disease. Interviewed by a local TV program, the official said that the Cuban health system faces its most challenging moment since COVID-19 started on the island in March 2020. Sorry, just going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, he specified that to date, a total of 77,953 people have been infected with the virus and commented that the recovery rate, 91.4%, is one of the highest in the world. He added that the case fatality rate is stable, 0.53%, and has decreased in relation to the pandemic's early stages. Health Minister noted that the number of active cases reached 5,063, 6.1%. However, he stated this indicator had experienced significant growth due to the increase in the number of infections during the last weeks. Cuba has not experienced a collapse of its health network because we were proactive and set up more beds, although the increase in the number of infections forced us to use facilities not used so far. Portal Miranda expressed that the country has the capability to deal with even higher numbers, that infection rates need to be reduced as well as the numbers reaching ICU units. He also urged his fellow Cubans to increase risk perception and reinforce self-care, especially by applying social distancing when outside their homes and using protective masks, among other actions. It's from the South China Morning Post, talking about the vaccine. If I can actually get to this post, that would be nice, and not just we might take a look at that in a minute. South China Morning Post. I read sometimes. I don't know. They're like a liberal oriented newspaper, but they usually write pretty good stuff. Minister explained that the outbreak had been characterized by confirmation of more than 5,000 cases per week and dispersion of positives in all provinces. Another feature of this stage is the increase in infections in children and younger older adults. Guadalupe Guzman, head of the Research, Diagnosis and Reference Center of the Institute of Tropical Medicine, added some essential information during the TV program. Experts said that between December 28th, 2020, March 28th, 2020, this must be 2019, I think. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, man.
Population study.
Because if it's about coronavirus, it's probably just backwards between March and December 2020.
Maybe.
Or maybe
a population
March
study was carried out, which identified 5 variants and 6 mutation patterns. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're right. It's probably just backwards.
Yeah.
Circulating in Cuba. She explained that these variants include those reported in South Africa, California, and the UK, which are highly contagious and have been internationally linked to an increase in mortality. Most effective remedy against the virus continues to be prevention and the application of health protocols. Some order you're going in, did you pre-plan this? I'm not going in any specific order. I have a few articles kind of lined up. Let's see. I believe I have. Yeah, here I have 2 articles which are related to this, and then we got the South China Morning Post to see what they're talking about. But we got these 2. Highest rate of recovered COVID-19 patients in the Americas. 92 candidate vaccines are in the final stage of clinical trials. Cuba is consolidating its national strategy to confront the pandemic, which was also recently recognized by, I believe, President Luis Arce. Highest rate of patients recovered from COVID-19 in the Americas. 94.2% as of March 20th. 2 of its 5 candidate vaccines in the final stages of clinical trials. Cuba is consolidating its national strategy to confront the pandemic. Results that were recognized by the President Bolivia, Luis Arce. Salute the sister people of Cuba, which despite the brutal blockade is the only Latin American country that has 2 candidate vaccines in phase 3. Soberana 02 and Abdala. I only heard about this one, the Sobriana one. Describing as admirable what the country has achieved in control of the disease. Gesture was reciprocated by Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, who expressed special thanks for Bolivia's support in the fight against the U.S. blockade, and reaffirming the brotherhood that unites the two nations. Precisely as another piece of news on Cuba's progress against the SARS-CoV-2 virus demonstrates, several institutions in Havana began intervention trials of Soberana 2 with 150,000 volunteers. This I read an article about when it was happening, March 22nd. Following approval from the State Chamber for the Control of Medicines and Medical Devices. I watched an interview with a guy who took part in that volunteer study, which was pretty interesting. I don't know if I could find it now, though, but Google it. Information was published on the BioCuba Pharma Enterprise Group's Twitter account, along with other details and explaining that results collected will complement clinical efficiency data gathered phase 3 trials of Soberana 2, allow for evaluation of the vaccine's impact on reducing the incidence and dispersion of the virus within the population. Trial will include an at-risk group of health workers in the biopharmaceutical industry in Havana and other sectors defined by MINSAP. These are 5 vaccines. I'm not sure why they're making 5 of them. I don't really know enough about vaccines, but I know that some vaccines work differently, right? Some require a booster shot, some work longer, some don't work as long. Some require higher or lower temperatures to be stored in. Some of them are more difficult to transport to like rural places, I assume. And I assume just some of these will be better vaccines, but it just takes longer it's going to take longer to develop them, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not a guarantee that any particular type of vaccine works even, right? So, like, it makes sense to try and develop a handful at once because, like, you never know. Plus, people respond differently to, like, different types of vaccines. So it's good to have a couple, just... like, I guess just in case. And especially another thing that actually might be important that they might be considering that like Western countries aren't considering is different strains and specifically developing like vaccines that are more generalized.
Yeah, that's part of the article. China and Cuba are developing a pan-corona vaccine, which will be effective against different strains of SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus and prevent COVID-19. As confirmed March 22nd press conference. Chinese scientists and Cubans from the Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology Center developing the product in a facility opened in the central city of Yongshu, Hunan province, specifically for research projects involving the two countries. That is what we're talking about. You've heard of Pan-Arabism, time for Pan-Coronaism. Thank you, Thanister. This is another article about the vaccine. First Latin American vaccine in phase 3 trials. After rigorous analysis, yeah, this is basically the same thing. Producing the first vaccine in Latin America against SARS-CoV-2. Pan American Health Organization and the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Cuba will be in ideal position to launch a vaccination campaign to protect our people from COVID-19. Following the production of the first batch of 150,000 doses of the 100 million projected and the preparation of the second batch, it was announced that production of the candidate vaccine Abdallah has also begun. So I imagine Cuba is planning on making more vaccines and more doses than the total population of Cuba is gonna need. Now, some of that is for backup. Some of that is, you know, certain vaccines might not work in certain strains. People might have to be vaccinated again, like a year or two from now. Some of that I also imagine is gonna be sent to other countries in Latin America, which is something that Cuba has done before when they develop vaccines. Is they send those vaccines to other countries in Central America and the Caribbean mainly. I'm just looking at a different article off screen to see if this is about that exact thing. Let's see. No, okay. That was just a different thing. Sorry. Yeah. I was just. There's a separate article about doctors in Anguilla. But it did mention vaccines, so never mind. Well, yeah, that was. Oh, right, and I want to watch this South China Morning Post video as well. It is 2 minutes. Well, maybe we'll pause it.
Does it have audio?
Yeah. Are you getting audio?
No, I'm not getting audio.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me change windows.
Yeah, sourcing support, right?
Okay. You should get audio now, I think.
Oh, all right.
Verdaderamente es un honor poder decir de que yo, uno de muchos.
Ben? Are you getting audio?
Oh, yeah.
Cubanos, poder decir de que verdaderamente es un honor poder decir de que yo, uno de muchos cubanos, yo uno de muchas personas que viven en este país ya han sido inmunizados o estamos pasando este estudio. Y nada, ojalá sea útil y ojalá el resultado de este estudio sea todo lo positivo que esperamos.
Tenemos mucha confianza que nuestras vacunas sean efectivas, las vacunas que están en desarrollo. Los resultados que tenemos hasta la fecha predicen, podemos decir, en un nivel importante de que van a ser resultados satisfactorios. Por lo tanto, mantenemos que antes que se acabe el 2021, nuestra población será inmunizada con las vacunas que estamos desarrollando. El bloqueo que estamos sometidos, la situación que tenemos en el país, nos hubiera sido muy difícil realmente tener los resultados que estamos teniendo, tener en el combate a la pandemia si no hubiéramos contado con esta industria que se ha creado hace más de 35 años en
Alright, that was it. Imagine actually creating a reserve for emergencies. Lol, what a bunch of nerds. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so Cuba has a population of around 10 million. They're planning on producing 100 million vaccines. Now, I imagine some of those are going to be the kind of vaccine where you're going to need 2 doses. I'm not sure what I'm not exactly sure how many of those 100 million vaccines are produced explicitly for just the population of Cuba. But you can imagine that 100 million vaccines for 10 million citizens, they are probably planning on sending some of those vaccines abroad.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is they'll probably go to like close trade partners first, right? So probably
I imagine
like
I imagine cooperative nations within the Caribbean. So one country that receives quite a lot of aid, medical and otherwise, from Cuba is Haiti. They've been facing a lot of economic problems over the last 2 decades or so.
really.
Yeah,
That's
I
actually
mean,
kind of surprising, just because like doesn't Haiti do a lot of trade like with the United States?
yeah, they do.
Like, because like the U.S. and the Western world is entirely responsible for how poor Haiti is today.
Yeah,
So like, I guess that's kind of wild to think of. So like the U.S. is basically like making all these trade deals with Haiti, and then banking on Cuba helping them with their healthcare. Like
yeah. I mean, I
it's just like
suppose more or
Walmart
less.
like paying people nothing and then banking on food stamps to like cover the gaps basically.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh
I
my
mean,
god.
Cuba and Haiti. I mean, they're close by, and Haiti generally it is in a bad economic situation right now. They are one of the countries in the Caribbean and the Americas at large that need the most help. So they've received a lot of that from Cuba in the forms of medical volunteers like doctors, and but also in vaccines that Cuba has donated in the past, and medications and so on. Cuba has a pretty long history of humanitarian aid to Latin American countries that are poorer and more desperate need than Cuba is. So Cuba as a country has more doctors than it needs. Like it educates more doctors than more than the number of doctors that are needed to treat the Cuban people, right? So Cuba sends a lot of them abroad in humanitarian crises and that kind of thing, like earthquakes, and like the earthquake in Haiti and so on, and natural disasters and other things just in general. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, Cuba sent doctors to Italy when Italy was going through the worst of it. So Italy had a very bad time with coronavirus at the beginning. I don't know if that was in March or April, but yeah, in the beginnings. Haiti hasn't recovered from the earthquake yet.
Yeah. I'm wondering with the vaccine production, I'm actually a little curious as to whether or not like Cuba and China are gonna help. They're gonna help other countries with like domestic production, right? Because usually like it takes a little bit to get set up, but once you're set up, it's really easy to do like biopharmaceutical production. It's like if it wasn't for the United States literally using military force to enforce copyright laws and like patent laws around the world, it would be the easiest way for poorer countries to industrialize and make a lot of money in the global market. So I guess I don't know. I'm wondering if when it comes to this vaccine, if like Cuba and China are gonna help other countries like set up like domestic production, because it would make sense for China at a bare minimum to do it, because right, like we talked earlier about China wanting to have like profitable trade right around the world, and one thing that stops that is if your trade partner keeps dealing with pandemics. That would be very unfortunate, and so it would make sense for China to help set up domestic biopharmaceutical production, so there's readily available vaccines for a litany of diseases in like the global south, in particular like East Africa, where it's doing all this trade. So I'm kind of curious to see where that goes over the next couple years to see whether or not they do any of that. Because I honestly haven't heard anything about it, you know?
I don't think Cuba has any plans to do that I'm aware of. China maybe, but I don't know. Right, so we got I just now saw two articles in Azure that might be interesting to look at. I've got a whole list of a bunch of websites that might be interesting to look at, but I haven't gotten any more specific articles out. But I just saw this one. Elon Musk confesses to lithium coup in Bolivia.
Oh, is this the one about the tweet?
Maybe. It's
because it's from July.
Oh, yeah, this was July 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he tweet about?
Yeah, he literally put out. Yeah,
we'll coup whoever we want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, interesting. This was 2016. Okay, never mind. I thought those were recent. Never mind that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna look off screen for a minute and select a few articles. You just distract the listeners.
Yeah, because sourcing support, right? Confess or brag. And Marvelous Mayo Marmar in my chat says, I read an article from Telesur about Cuba and Argentina discussing a food for vaccines agreement. Interesting. What are like the main like crops coming out of Argentina? What are their like big like exports? I'm just not terribly familiar with Argentinian agriculture. Beef? Oh, really? I thought beef was more in, like, I guess, Eastern South America, like in Brazil. I didn't realize that there's that much beef production in Argentina. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Like, obviously, a lot of countries are going to have their own, like beef production. But, oh, really? Really, Mr. Hansen? Argentina is the beef country. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why I was under the impression that it was Brazil. I guess probably because Brazil is doing so much right now to like clear cut the rainforest just for beef production. I'm gonna assume that like Argentina isn't using such heavy-handed tactics. I mean, at least hopefully not, right? Okay, Brazil's cocoa, coffee, and wood. Interesting. Okay, Mr. Hansen. Interesting. Yeah. I guess it makes sense. Yeah. So it's pretty dope to see that there's like a lot of trade happening there. Hey, what's up, the Amazing Wolf Skeptic? How are you doing today? I'm gonna show for myself really quick. I'll mute myself on Azure stream so that I don't have to chill there. I guess.
All right, you do that. Okay. I guess I'll mute myself on Ben's stream as well. Just on Discord. While I talk about this, I found that looks kind of interesting. We got two different articles, kind of about the same thing, from Vietnam News. Vietnam pilots initiative to reduce plastic waste and marine litter. This is something I talked about on a previous stream watching John Oliver, and I kind of got very pissed off about it. I'm not looking to go on the same rant about like recycling and the intricacies of first world countries sending a bunch of their shit to third world countries, but Vietnamese authorities and international organizations discuss ways to reduce plastic waste and marine litter in Vietnam at a workshop in Hanoi on Friday. Introduce the amount of
And
plastic.
because I haven't heard Azure shield for themselves, everybody that's in Azure's chat, you should subscribe and give bits to Azure. Give them your money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The initiatives included enhancing plastic packaging collection, sorting and recycling, encouraging fishermen to collect plastic waste caught while fishing, establishing an alliance of supermarkets to reduce the use of single-use plastic bags, managing waste in ports. Now, I'm not sure if this article goes over where the waste is coming from. Circular economy. Because fourth largest marine plastic polluter after China, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The country dumps an estimate of 300,000 to 700,000 tons of plastic waste into water per year. 6% of the world's marine plastic. The country has set the target to have zero disposable plastic waste by 2025. That's pretty ambitious. Now, when it comes to Indonesia in particular, I'm not so sure about the Philippines, but I think the Philippines is also in a similar situation. And China was also in a similar position a few years ago. So a lot of the waste, plastic waste that ends up in Indonesia, and I think also the Philippines, but I could be wrong about that, is imported from first world countries. So the United States, for instance, and a lot of it's plastic waste to Indonesia. Because what they do is, if you put, a plastic bottle or something if you put something in the recycling bin, it gets sent to a recycling center in the US, right? Like a recycling center in your state. And they take a look at what it is, and they sort everything that's easy to recycle, and that can be made into, that can be easily made into materials that can be resold at a profit. And then everything that is too difficult to recycle, they put to the side, and they send that to Indonesia, where Indonesia is supposed to recycle it, and then a lot of the time they just kind of don't. And it ends up in landfills, and some of it ends up in the oceans. And Indonesia is more or less forced, maybe a little bit of a strong word, but definitely pressured by a very powerful country, the United States, to accept this deal. Same thing was happening in China. A lot of waste, plastic waste, was being exported to China, where Chinese companies were gonna take it and recycle it. Everything that couldn't be recycled in America, or that wasn't profitable enough to be recycled in America, they would recycle in China. But even then, China got, even those Chinese companies got to the point where, okay, we're just being sent way too much shit. We can't actually do this anymore. And so they stopped accepting imports of plastics and other recyclable materials from the US, which kind of sent America into panic. Because America isn't very good at recycling, because they kind of rely on recycling having to be profitable in order for them to do it. And if it's not profitable, then they just kind of don't, and they just send it to a third world country for them to deal with it. They do the same thing with electronic waste. You can see a lot of, electronic graveyards in various countries. I think in West Africa you can find, I think in Liberia is one of the countries that has a lot of electronic waste from the US, where they just send them giant shipments of broken down computers, and they're like, hey, here's this international aid, here's this gift for you, and it's just trash, and Liberia's like, well, thanks, I guess we'll put it over here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there also a lot of plastics production in Southeast Asia?
I don't know. You may know more about that than I do. This article doesn't really go into it.
I think there is. I might be wrong, but my understanding is there is a decent chunk of plastics production, and that's another source of plastics waste, because basically, I don't know if you're familiar with the technique of injection molding or what that is, but it's how plastic things are made. So you'll notice if you look at plastic things, right, you'll see random little bumps, right? You'll see random little bumps, right? Where it's like a circle, right? And you'll be like, why is there this random circle that's like a bump just somewhere on this plastic thing? And it's because basically the way that injection molding works is you have this big machine, right, that has a mold, and it just shoots plastic into that mold through little tubes. And that bump is where it breaks off that plastic, right? It's where it breaks off that plastic, which is from like the tube, right? There's a lot of plastic that gets wasted in that process, right? Because basically every time you shut down and start up, there's like a tube full of plastic that cools down, and then you have to kind of get rid of that. And it's like a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing that like you get a bunch of spare plastic. So anywhere that there's a lot of plastics production, you're gonna have a higher rate of plastics waste, just because there are waste products associated with the injection molding process. And that's like a whole thing. So like for example, like the cheap plastic toys that are made in China, right? A lot of those use like injection molding and other forms of plastics production that produces what seems like minimal waste at the time, but when you're talking about industrial capacity, you're talking about like these huge production facilities, there just ends up being a lot of plastic waste in total, and so you get like a higher rate of plastic waste there. So that's like a whole nother thing too, is the fact that like in the United States we ship a lot of the more polluting industry over there as well, in addition to sending our garbage there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds about right. There is a big thing about shipments that are marked with international aid. That's actually just countries wanting to get rid of shit that they don't want anymore, and sometimes it's a bit of a white elephant where it's more trouble for the country that's accepting the quote-unquote aid. Yeah, it's a whole thing. That was everything that I had prepared for today. I was a little bit short on time before the stream started. I have more news publication kind of lined up, but nothing that I haven't had the time to pick up a bunch of good articles. But I could just do like let's see here. Right click Nepal. Let's see here. I organized my bookmarks in a very neat way. You can't see it on screen right now, but I sorted all my bookmarks of news publications according to continent and country. So if I just click on Nepal, I get a bunch of websites from Nepal, and I'll see if Nepal is up to anything interesting. Although I think one of these is exclusively in Nepalese, so that one might not be as helpful. Let's see here. No, you know what? This website doesn't get updated that much apparently, because I remember all of these headlines from like last week when I was looking at them. No, I'm not really seeing anything. Does chat know if anything that's going on? Are you from a country that doesn't usually get talked about in the news? Is this something that's going on? I know about a while ago, the Supreme Court in Brazil said Lula could run again, and I think he is planning on running for president again when the next presidential elections are against Bolsonaro.
Is there any concern that like Lula just gets like arrested again though? Like, because like I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of doomer on Brazilian politics just because like it's so embedded with the United States that like, because literally like, was it Lula that was actually the president for like 5 minutes before like some sort of like random council decided that, oh, you're corrupt and we're gonna throw you in jail for no reason?
No, he was president for a little bit. Did he get one full term? And then in the second term, was he? Oh, I really should know that. I forget if he got 4 years in office or if he was. Yeah. He was president of Brazil from January 1st, 2003 to January 1st, 2011. He was president for a bit. And he was
okay, Makoki.
Yeah, corruption scandal and controversy was let's see here. Prison 2018. 2016 he was charged with corruption, accusing him of being the mastermind or maximum commander of the scheme. I think recently, let's see here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a minute since I have heard a lot about it, but my understanding of it was that basically there was this corruption oversight council or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or and they themselves were doing the corruption, right? They had these deals with all these businesses, but then they took what they were doing and pointed at Lula and said, it's his fault we're doing this. and then that's a really reductionist way to put it, and I'm also willing to say that I'm 100% wrong, because once again, it's been a million years since I've covered this, and
no, I am not as tuned in to Brazilian news as I should be. Yeah, basically the last thing I heard was the Supreme Court decision in Brazil to overturn a decision that would ban Lula from running again. But that's basically the last that I heard of it.
Yeah. Because even though Lula was really cool, it was kind of Brazil's had to deal with some of the issues that early Venezuela had to deal with, when Hugo Chavez came into power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where even though there was supposedly some left-wing leaders in the government, there were older institutions that were way less democratic that were no, we won't let you do any of these things. And so I guess Lula and Hugo Chavez went in very different directions, where Hugo Chavez was oh, you don't think that this is legitimate? Well, I don't think you're legitimate, and we're going to go do our own thing anyway. And then, or was that a different country sourcing support? Am I thinking of a different country and not Brazil with that thing? Oh, no. Oh, you're talking to Bolivian. Okay. I'm sorry. I missed that in chat. Okay. But no, yeah. But then Lula had more soft-handed approach, and then ended up basically getting thrown in jail because people were upset that he was trying to even slightly move to the left in Brazilian politics.
I'm sure there are loads of people in chat who know more about this than both you and I do.
Oh, most definitely, 100%.
And I know I have I'm not sure about the demographics of my Twitch viewers, but I know I have plenty of Brazilian people who watch my YouTube channel. And interestingly, I think Brazil is the number 2 country behind the United States for visitors to my website, socialism101.com. So I get a lot of emails from Brazilians. Interestingly, I think it might be because the translation to Brazilian Portuguese was one of the first translations I received, and so that's one of the oldest pages on the website. That might be why. But yeah, I get I think last time I checked, it was 5,000 visitors from Brazil a month visit socialism101.com, specifically just Brazilians. And I think the US it's 10,000 or something like that. But I don't know if I have any Brazilians in chat though. If I did, I feel like they would have immediately pointed out how ignorant we both are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, because this is European prime time, right, for the most part, right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I guess it's a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
But the sort of 9 a.m. slot Central Time in America is European prime time, so there tends to be a lot more, like, I have a more European viewership than like most other like politics streamers that stream at like night and stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of like percentage.
In my offline time, I'm gonna try to tune my Google News feed a little bit, because I'm trying to like find good news sources for a whole host of different countries. Basically, I thought of the idea for doing this whole like third world news stream like yesterday, basically. Still trying to gonna be working on some quirks going forward, but I do feel like this has been pretty fun and a pretty interesting stream, and I do feel like I probably want to do something like this going forward more often. But yeah, problem with Google News, whenever I Google any country, especially a Latin American country, most of the news are related to football.
My God.
So trying to find out how to tune that, trying to get more news about, you know, actual news, and not just like, yeah, if I Google South Africa and I click on the news tab, pretty much everything is about football. Oh wait, here's something. 5 important things happening in South Africa today. It was posted yesterday on businesstech.co.za.
Yeah.
This is,
I mean, politics in South Africa is really interesting right now because, like, are you familiar with sort of the past 10 years of what's been happening in South Africa?
the most I'm aware of is, well, I know of the conflict between the Afrikaner, the Boers, the various ethnic groups in South Africa that are descended from European settlers. I know the ANC has been dominating South African politics for a long time, but they've been drifting toward, you know, social democracy and like centrist politics. And I know that a new left-wing political party has been growing called the Economic Freedom Fighters, which is a controversial party, and they've been accused of being like racist against white settlers, and being too radical and that kind of thing. That's basically as much as I know. And
so
I want to learn more.
There's interesting internal politics within the ANC right now, right?
Yeah.
Because basically like the new leadership that has come in over the past, I think, 2 years is basically saying that, like, okay, well, there's some corruption scandals in the past and they're drifting in a direction that we don't feel like they should be going, and we should focus more on working class people, and so basically it's kind of going through a resurgence, or like a revitalization or rebirth a little bit, the ANC is, where they're trying to sort of abandon some of the shift that they've done towards neoliberalism over the past few years. And so there's just sort of like an internal, like, changing of pace, I guess, towards the left from the dominating political party in South Africa. And so like it's really interesting. It's really interesting, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, right, that it ends up going like awesomely, and that they start really doing some more lefty politics stuff.
There is a big problem with especially concerning certain African countries where it's hard to find English language news, or Namibia, for example, that are written by Namibians and not like Germans or the BBC. So that is something that I want to work on going forward. Trying to find good, reliable news sources that take the native is the wrong word, but take the domestic perspective of actual Namibians if I'm gonna cover news from, for example, Namibia. because Namibia was one of the countries that I wanted to bring up an article from Namibia and read on stream, but I couldn't find a good one, and because it's been kind of hard finding an Namibian English language news sources. A lot of what I find is Sky News, News 24, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is generally good, but I specifically wanted to find something that was actually from Namibia, and I tried looking at SWAPO. Yeah, swapoparty.org. They have their own website, but I don't think it's updated very regularly. It looks like a very old website, and it's hard to see how. I don't think this has been updated since October. Yeah. But if anyone knows any like good newspapers from various, I mean, it could be any country really, but good newspapers from third world countries specifically.
Is there any? Does the Communist Party in the DRC? Because the DRC has.
What is going on in the background? What is beeping?
Oh my god! I'm sorry. I just got like 100 alerts from every Twitch streamer that's live right now, all at once. Sorry.
Yeah, it was going off like crazy.
So the DRC has like a prominent like socialist and or communist party within it, right? Like that's one I studied a lot in my undergraduate studies, like about the Civil War, which was at that point I think ongoing or just near its end. And I don't know. I'm always kind of curious about what's going on there, and I was wondering if there's like I wonder if there's like a socialist party like news outlet, because usually they put out their own publications.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the DRC in my experience. I don't really know what to put on screen because I'm not talking about what's on screen right now. I'll just Google a picture of Smash Mouth and put that on screen.
Oh my god.
There. I'll put this on screen. Well, we're just discussing things in general. So, the DRC, there's not a lot of good information about the DRC. On the English-speaking side of the web.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, this is a very natural problem. If I'm gonna do a news show talking about third world countries, it's gonna be hard finding good, reliable news sources from those countries. Sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially with news, like the best information that comes out of the DRC literally is like ethnographers and anthropologists that like spend like a few years there and like write about like the situation and then publish an article a year later, right, about their experience. And so it's just not up to date, right? So you'll get like a lot of like stories about people's personal lives and their experiences and the trauma they've had to deal with. And then like some of the like cultural background and like, you know, some of that large scale like context, but that's always like a year behind. It's not news, right? It's important information, but it's not like, you know, the Communist Party put out a statement today about, you know, XYZ policy on coronavirus or something like that. You know, like it's just fundamentally different than news.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to see what I found on looking up Nepal, Nepal, I got the ruling party in Nepal, Communist Party of Nepal, Unified Marxist-Leninist. Another English side. You're looking at the latest news from the ruling party of Nepal. Prime Minister Oli inspects new building of party headquarters. UML to build state-of-the-art party office. 10th National Congress in November. Prime Minister Oli bids send-off to Mountaineer Sherpa. It's just, I'm sure there's news about Nepal, but I can't find it.
Yeah.
But that's something that's like hashtag self-criticism. That's what I'm going to be working on off stream for next
Yeah.
time.
Well,
Oh.
and Google has like an extreme like English language bias,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
like which
absolutely.
is a major problem. Yeah, so it's hard to. You just have to go to like page 50 on Google
Yeah.
to find like, you know.
Oh, that was something that I was going to talk about as well. So it's been in the news recently, actually, which is interesting, about male bias on Wikipedia, where a lot of the people who write articles for Wikipedia are men, and so there is kind of a lack of articles for historical female figures on Wikipedia, and there have been like opinion articles and stuff like that. I saw it trending on Twitter. It's trended on Twitter a few times, actually. So apparently this is something that has been in the news or in the national conversation. But there's also a huge Western bias, of course, because Wikipedia is a Western website. And so there is a lack of good quality articles concerning the global south. So the DRC, I tried going through all the information I could on Wikipedia, but it is lacking. A lot of it is outdated. There are just a lot of red links. Like there are just a lot of things that there aren't published pages for anymore. Or that just no one made pages for certain things. It's it's tough. Oh, but I wanted to say something to the people listening. If you are from preferably a global south country, if you're from a Latin American country, maybe with preference toward smaller countries like Caribbean countries, maybe Guyana, Suriname would be very interesting. Uruguay would be kind of interesting. If you're from West Africa, if you're from East Africa, Tanzania would be cool. If you're from Namibia or Botswana, would be kind of cool. Zambia, Zimbabwe. If you're from, or if your parents are from Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, Laos would be interesting. Cambodia, right? Hit me up, send me a DM if you want to talk on stream sometime and just have a chat about what's going on in your part of the world. I used to do a podcast. I only did 2 episodes of it, but back in the day, I did a podcast. Some people, long-time fans of the channel, might remember I did a podcast called Talking Goats, where the whole premise was every episode I would have a guest from a different country, and we would just talk about leftist politics and kind of the leftist perspective of that country, right? So we did a very good episode about Chile. We did a very good episode about Ukraine. And then I think partially because there wasn't a lot of interest, not a lot of people contacted me wanted to be on. It was very early on in my YouTube career but the channel was still pretty small. And then partially because I started doing another podcast and it was a whole thing. But I want to do kind of that kind of thing again, or at least try doing it again, where I get some people on the show who are from countries that usually aren't talked about in like global news, like for example the DRC, where the leftist perspective or the anti-imperialist perspective of certain countries is brought up. Usually, if you're from a country, basically what I'm saying is if you're from a country that usually gets talked about rather than where the news sources of that country are put into circulation in the world. Like basically any Southeast Asian country, you see a lot of BBC articles about Thailand, for instance. You don't see as much, articles from Thailand trending on Twitter, for example, right? You usually see like Western countries talking about other countries. If you're from countries like that, and if you feel like you have a story to tell, if you feel like you want to talk about your the politics about your country, and maybe you want to talk about misconceptions that the Western world has about your country, and you want to come on, you want to talk about that, you want to get your perspective out there, DM me on Twitter, send me an email, get in get in contact with me in some way and we'll talk about it, because that feels like something that would be fun and interesting. Because I'm, for those who don't know, I am a very ignorant Swedish person. I don't know nearly enough about the world as I should, and I want to learn more, and I'm doing my best, and I really want to promote and just promote the voices of countries that usually don't get to speak, right? That don't get that platform, that are, again, talked about, like by the BBC. The BBC, I hate the BBC so fucking much. The BBC, infamous for extremely imperialist perspectives on a lot of third world countries.
Do you mind if I plug the People's Herald in this regard too?
Yeah,
because like that was kind of one of my hopes with the idea of the People's Herald, is that anybody in the world could write, like, I guess like the whole goal was like global local news, so that like, because like local news is important, right? What your city council does, what your local representative does in whatever place in the world you live in is super, super important, right? No matter where it is in the world you live. Now, most of the people that have written for it so far have been American, but I would like it for it to be like to have stories from everybody, to actually tell working class people's stories wherever they may be. And one of the things that's nice, right, being a Twitch streamer, is that usually when I publish an article, I can get other Twitch streamers to cover it. So like if you do an interview with Azure and you want to like write a synopsis of your take on specific political nuances of wherever you live, like I will publish it here, right? I will 100% publish it here and then share it around so that people can actually hear your perspective about what's going on, and not just get like, because the BBC most of the time they'll like talk to the American State Department and they'll be like, okay, American State Department, tell us what's going on in Chile. And that's like, that's their source, right? They don't actually talk to regular people. So
it's something I've been thinking about a little bit, kind of as I've gotten into the groove of being on Twitch. I haven't been on Twitch for that long, and in the time that I've been on Twitch, I haven't streamed that often, and I haven't watched a lot of Twitch like in my days. I've always been watching YouTube, but more recently I've been watching more Twitch, and I've tuned into certain like politics channels and some like specifically left wing like Twitch channels. And I felt that there is a general lack of good quality reporting, or not even reporting, but just coverage of news in the third world. A lot of it is American news. Sometimes you get European news, right? But even that is rare. A lot of the news on Twitch, even from leftist content creators, is about America, and that's kind of why I felt like it would be interesting to talk more explicitly about the rest of the world, believe it or not, the rest of the world, the entire world minus America, pretty wide, diverse, and interesting place. A lot of stuff happens in other countries. What are some good lefty Twitch channels? I only watch the GOAT on Twitch. Well, Mr. Hansen, I happen to know a very good leftist Twitch channel, and his name is Bleep Blom Hasanabi, and you can find him on twitch.tv/Hasanabi. With me in this call today is Bleep Blom Ben. I'll plug your channel again. SO Bleep Blom Ben. You can follow him at twitch.tv/bleepblomben. Oh wait. Oh, did I get your channel name wrong? No, that was right.
No, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, you can follow Ben. You can follow Ben over there. I just hovered over the link and it said an error occurred, so I thought I spelled your name wrong, channel name wrong, but yeah, it was fine. It was good.
And everybody in my chat, y'all should go follow Azure Scapegoat, who you probably know from YouTube and also from being on my channel.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've kind of tuned in. Sometimes when Ben is live, I just kind of join the call and just kind of show up like, hey, I have opinions about things. Because I don't know, I've kind of have anxiety a lot about streaming and making content, and it's just easy to jump in a call with someone who's streaming and just kind of chit chat and talk rather than setting up my own stream, because then I have to have anxiety about, oh, am I doing this right? Am I misrepresenting something? Am I just get a lot of anxiety in general. But so I sometimes I tune in or I joined Ben's stream just because it's fun to talk about things, but also streaming is terrifying and it makes me afraid. But I'm working on it.
Yeah. No, seriously. I mean, because especially like when you're doing a live stream, right? It's all live. It's all live. And if you say something and you're like, no, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It's too late. It's already out there. And people are gonna like, I mean, I'm lucky that I haven't had people like leap on me and be like, Ben, how dare you? But there are some like, I don't know. I think if you get involved in drama, like in Twitch drama with like other Twitch streamers, then you'll have more people who are like trying to like catch you saying something wrong or making a mistake or something to like rip you apart for it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm lucky, right? Because I have you and all my mods to like chat with me offline, off being live, to
Yeah.
like bounce ideas off of before I say things on stream.
I got someone redeemed. Ask a history question. Oh wait. Oh god. Hang on. What did I do? Oh god. I fucked it up. I fucked up everything. My dashboard manager thing is. Oh god. What's going on? Okay. Sorry about that. Can you at some point talk about forgotten organizing and labor history when it comes to women? Absolutely. I want to talk about that. There's a lot of interesting history when it comes to the labor movement interacting with the suffragette movement. Sometimes they were one and the same. Sometimes they were two semi-separate movements happening at the same time. But yeah, it's very interesting to talk about. The early labor movement and the suffragette movement were kind of happening, side by side. And a lot of early suffragettes were, to some degree, socialists, and most socialists at the time were also in favor of women's rights and women's right to vote and also working class suffrage, because you had limitations on who was able to vote. It wasn't just based on gender; it was also it could be based on things like land ownership. A lot of working class people in the early 20th century, late 19th century didn't have the right to vote.
Yeah.
So
And I think
there's
a lot
definitely
of
a lot
people
to talk about there.
A lot of people really forget that, like, I don't know, people are under the impression that because women weren't allowed to vote, that they weren't like politically engaged for the longest time. But like, there's a lot of anthropological history that's really interesting about the early United States, right? And like, this is true pretty much everywhere around the world. But like, if we're talking about the labor movement in the United States and the suffragette movement, women have always been a huge political force in America, right?
Yeah.
They've always been a huge political force. They were just barred from voting, right? But they still did political organizing, right?
Yeah.
It's just the more of like mutual aid, direct action type stuff that you would see today, like anarchists talking about a lot.
Yeah. And of course you had working women or women in general active in the early labor rights movement. So it wasn't at all the case that the suffragette movement was made up entirely of women and that the working class, the early labor movement was made up entirely of men. That's a later stereotype that kind of appeared, but women were active in the labor rights movement, and the suffragette movement and the labor rights movement were not as separate as they might be presented today. If you read about the history of these two things, they're kind of presented as that they're like these two things that just happen to happen around the same time, but they're very, very much interlinked, right? A lot of a lot of labor activists were you know, had relations with or were married to women who like were also giant icons, you know, in the political sphere, but more so in the suffragette movements and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's actually like it was really interesting because in the early labor movement, women were largely the ones in leadership roles, right? They were largely the ones doing the actual like coordination and collaboration for like to actually like organize strikes and to organize strike funds and things like that. It was predominantly women who were like the central leaders in organizing that, which like and some of it plays into like the gender role stereotypes of like the time. So like you know, even working women would typically work a little bit less than like their husbands at the point in time, and they would spend more time talking to like their neighbors and friends and family through like social networks, and through those like networks of women knowing each other and working together. That's sort of how that labor movement started. And actually, do you want to know like a really fun, well, not fun, it's kind of sad and really infuriating, but it's like an anthropological historical fact about that. So you know how there's a stereotype about women being gossipy, You know that stereotype? That stereotype was actively created on purpose during the labor movement and suffragette movement because women were so effective at like doing political organizing that like literally capitalists started inventing this idea about, oh, women are going to gossip about you and create all this drama in your life, and oh, it's so bad and how dare they, and can you imagine, they're secretly talking behind your back. That was literally like the propaganda that they were putting out about women because women were so effective at doing this political organizing. What they wanted to do is create a cultural norm that pressured husbands to basically like pit women against each other, basically. And so that's it was like a whole thing. It was like a whole thing. Because like that sort of origin of women having really strong social networks of support that allowed them to be major leaders in the labor movement was largely driven by the sort of midwifery, right? Where like, you know, women were the ones who are sort of the ones who were the most knowledgeable about things like childbirth and things like that. And so they were the ones who'd take the leadership role in that, which is what led to like the medicalization of childbirth that happened in the late 19th century, basically, you know, and that also coincided with the medicalization of just women's existence, with the invention of things like hysteria and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a really good source on this, Cicero writes, and I'm trying to think about like, okay, I'm trying to remember, there was an interview a long time ago on the Young Turks where Anna Kasparian was interviewing Maytha. I think her name's Maytha Al-Hassan, but I'm not entirely sure. And they were talking about a book that talked about that history. I don't remember the name of the book. All I remember is that interview. So, and that interview was a few years ago. I think it was 3 years ago is when that interview was. But I'm gonna need to maybe find that because I want to read that book.
Why on earth is it called the 19th century if it's the 1800s? It's the most confusing bullshit. I agree. As someone who has studied history and now teaches history in a high school capacity, it is annoying. It is stupid. Although I am grateful that in Swedish we don't say 19th century, we just say 1800s or 1800-talet. Which means the 1800 number. That's weird to directly translate. But yeah, no, it is stupid. It is confusing. I don't know why we still do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want closing remarks. I'm gonna be ending my stream in a minute. If you want to come on the show, if you want to talk about your country from a leftist perspective, you want to talk about what's going on. Specifically, if you're from a third world country or the global south, a country that doesn't get talked about as much, giving preference to those countries over like Australia, unless you are active and you want to talk about specifically the indigenous population of Australia, the Aboriginals. In that case, that would be super interesting. But generally, I'm looking for people to come on and talk about things that they're experienced about, things that they have a background in, that don't get talked about as much. So, hit me up. Send me a DM on Twitter if you have any questions, and we can talk more there. But yeah, that's it. I think that's all for today that I had. Ben, I don't know if you're gonna be are you gonna be streaming after this?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna keep going for a while. I'm trying to stream a lot more for the rest of the month because I took a week off. And it turns out that even if I take time off, I still have to pay my rent. So
yeah, surprisingly. All right. Well, since I'm gonna end my stream, I'm gonna raid into Ben's channel. Maybe I'll stick around in voice for a little bit. Like I can stick around on your live stream for a little bit at least. But I'm gonna end my live stream. So I'm gonna raid over to Bleep on Ben. So everyone can jump over there. There we go. And raid.